In every federal election, there's always a case of a political candidate behaving badly. But what happens when the candidate in question is an existing member of parliament who encouraged people to cash in on a bounty issued by a foreign government? That's on today's episode for Follow the Lead podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Valerie McLaughlin. Today is April 1st, 2025, and we are talking about the Paul Chang saga, a saga that lasted way too long to get to its expected outcome. Spoiler alert, Mr. Chang is no longer in the race. But before I talk about how the saga ended, let's talk about the beginning. The story started late Friday of last week. Incumbent Liberal candidate Paul Chang, who was running in the riding of Markham-Unionville, reportedly stated to a Chinese publication that people could claim a bounty worth roughly $184,000 Canadian if they turned Zhou Tay into the Chinese consulate in Toronto. Mr. Tay is the Conservative candidate of the riding of Don Valley North. Mr. Tay is a pro-democracy activist. Hong Kong issued the bounty and arrest warrant on Mr. Tay about 3 to 4 months ago. This tactic isn't new. Hong Kong has issued several bounties and warrants for other pro-democracy activists in other parts of the world. On Friday, Mr. Chang took to his X account and posted an apology. It reads in part, quote, "The comments I made were deplorable and a complete lapse of judgment on the seriousness of the matter. As a former police officer, I should have known better. I sincerely apologize and deeply regret my comments," unquote. In an election, a story like this can derail a campaign. It took 3 days before Liberal leader Mark Carney addressed the situation. Yesterday, Mr. Carney was standing firm with the decision of keeping on the Liberal MP, despite receiving pushback from reporters.
This is a person of integrity who served this community, his community, as senior police officer for, as I said, more than a quarter century. He's made a terrible lapse in judgment. He's made an apology for that. It's also an individual who has family in Hong Kong. He's under no illusions about the situation there, the situation in broader China. He's made those apologies. He's made them directly to the individual concerned. He's made them directly to me. He has my confidence.
Mr. Carney basically gave the story more oxygen. There was a huge public outcry demanding Mr. Chang resign. It was clear to even a casual political observer that the MP would exit the race. It was only a matter of when. Mr. Tay has refused Mr. Chang's apology. The Conservative candidate posted a statement to his X account yesterday that reads in part, quote, "I want to be clear, no apology is sufficient. Threats like these are the tradecraft of the Communist Party of China to interfere in Canada. And they are not just aimed at me. They are intended to send a chilling signal to the entire community in order to force compliance to Beijing's political goals," unquote. It's surprising the Carney Liberals didn't immediately pull the plug on Mr. Chang's re-election campaign. Remember, the party revoked former Liberal MP Shadra Aria's nomination from the riding of Nepean over his alleged ties to the Indian government. Mr. Aria's vacancy has allowed Mr. Carney to step in as the Liberal candidate for Nepean. Jenny Kwan, who's the NGP incumbent for East Vancouver, had harsh words for Mr. Chang on the weekend while at a campaign stop with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh in Port Moody, British Columbia.
From my perspective, the comments from the Liberal candidate, Paul Chang, is absolutely astounding. He is a police officer, and he ought to know that when the CCP went out and put a bounty on anybody, including Canadians, that cannot be acceptable. That is intimidation at its worst. And yet, he played right into it. He advocated for people to bring him to the Chinese consulate to collect the bounty. In what universe is this normal? and especially in the face of Canada, where we are faced with foreign interference, active, sophisticated foreign interference activities targeting Canada's democratic institutions.
Ms. Kwan was born in Hong Kong and immigrated to Canada with her family when she was a child. Once again, the issue of foreign interference raises its head in this federal election. To be clear, I am not saying Mr. Chang was participating or engaging in foreign interference. In his apology on Friday on X, Mr. Chang said he will stand with the people of Hong Kong as they fight for human rights and freedoms. The saga of Paul Chang came to an end 5 minutes to midnight last night when Mr. Chang posted a statement to X saying that he was standing aside in this election. It's unclear if the MP decided to bow out on his own or was forced out, but the story might not be over. Mr. Che says he fears for his safety and has contacted the RCMP. Today, Mr. Carney was subdued when speaking about Mr. Chang. He said the party will move on and find a candidate to run in the riding. Ultimately, this story is a cautionary tale of what not to do when faced with situations like these. And let me explain. As previously discussed in a prior episode, foreign interference has been an issue in Canadian politics in recent years. Earlier this year, the public inquiry looking into foreign interference released its final report. The report identifies the People's Republic of China as one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference in Canada. According to the report, China targets all levels of government. It targets anyone that it perceives to have power and support its interests. Interference doesn't end at a foreign entity getting someone to do its bidding. There's a repressive and chilling nature to a foreign government meddling in Canadian affairs. Foreign entities and its proxies will target diaspora communities to influence voting, silence dissent, and control public opinion. The result of this is a disenfranchisement of voters. Voters can become too afraid to cast their vote, thus developing a distrust in democracy. Don Valley North, the riding that Mr. Tay is running in, has been a subject of a foreign interference investigation. According to the foreign interference report, international students were allegedly bussed into a Liberal candidate nomination meeting in 2019. The students were allegedly instructed to vote for Hang Dong if they wanted to remain in Canada. Despite being informed of these allegations, then Liberal leader Justin Trudeau declined removing Mr. Dong from the race due to insufficiencies related to the information. Mr. Dong denies he was involved. He would go on to win the riding for the Liberals in the 2019 election. However, Mr. Dong stepped away as being a member of the Liberal caucus more than 2 years ago after Global News reported that the Liberal MP allegedly had interactions with Chinese officials. Mr. Dong denies these allegations and is suing Global's parent company over the news report. He has sat as an independent since leaving caucus and is not seeking re-election. That's it for this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving it a nice review and a like, if possible. Thank you to everybody who listens. I appreciate your support. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.